We are going live. We should be live about, I would say now. Hey, everybody, it's Pip and Sam from the Wealth Debate. And you may notice I am not in my usual abode tonight. I'm actually in a hotel in Florida. And so good to have everybody on tonight. And so we're going to make sure, I don't know about my technology and how good I'm going to be with it tonight, but I'll do the best I possibly can to make it work. Uh, if you're in the chat or if you're watching, I'd love to have you say hello. Who are you? Let us know what you're thinking. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, and more importantly, Sam was already given about 3 or 4 items by somebody last night saying, hey, we want you to talk about these things. Now, interestingly enough, it's some stuff that we've touched on a little bit, but Sam is going to go deeper into it. What would be the new wording for that? A deeper dive into it. So I'm going to let you go, Sam, and here's Mr. Musa.
So just a couple things. Thanks, Pip. Welcome, everybody. Just a couple things in the news that we thought were interesting. One was Australia is now going to mandate a policy which asks or demands really from Google and Facebook payment, some sort of cost associated with using news feeds when published on YouTube or using in the search results or when Facebook publishes it. And this is a measure created to allow those media outlets like local news or even national news to compete against these media types like Google and Facebook. So my feeling or our feeling is, and Pip, I should let Pip speak for himself, but I don't like it when the government gets involved in business in this way. This is protectionism, and it will make already a weak business approach or business plan. What do you want to call it? Business. What am I looking for, Pip? It's a weak business. It's a dying business. The media outlets are having a struggle and a challenge, and by doing this will make them weaker. They need to compete is what's going to allow them to survive. They will survive. I believe they will survive, and I believe that the real trend is going to be that these news outlets and these networks that are on our TVs will move to a network system on the internet. It'll just be set up a little bit different, but they'll all participate. There's some new players that are involved, like Disney and Netflix has been around a while. They're just going to have to compete. The best thing they can do is to compete by creating this protectionism. This will make them, in my view, weaker. The other thing that was interesting is they're looking to pass a relief bill in the U.S. on Friday. This will also possibly include, they're voting on it, $15 minimum wage. I again, federally mandated, it's again, minimum wage, not a good idea. I think in any climate, certainly not one good, not a good idea in an environment where jobs are going to be a little more scarce than in the past. This will make it more difficult for new business to grow and just create new businesses. I don't think it's a good idea. A minimum wage increase, it doesn't do, I think, what they intended to do. I think the intentions are good, but they're unwise in the implementation of trying to help middle working class, more working class people earning that minimum wage. So again, this kind of stuff makes economies weaker. It's a band-aid solution to try to increase consumption, and I think it's something that one positive of it is it might create some inflation, which would battle the deflation that I think is going to proceed in the coming years. So we'll have to see what happens when the economy opens up and we see the economy start to grow again. I think it'll be interesting to see what the government does or how they manage the excess debt that's been created by stimulating the economy in the last year with COVID, and how they're going to manage to continue to protect business. And this is what they're doing. They're protecting business, which is important and needs to be done. You can call it, corporate welfare if you want. I think that you need to protect businesses as they employ people, and you need, in a sense, that is protecting people. I really believe that. So the government needs to participate in a hands-off kind of approach. I think they don't want to mandate specific policies that will create predictability in the market, because that stunts expansion and competition, and really ultimately reduces the likelihood that prices will come down due to that competitiveness. So just some thoughts about the news items more recently just came through. So let's talk about some of the topics that people were asking about: deflation, inflation. Also, someone asked about the idea of debt, and a great question someone asked was, should you have 100% debt on your investment properties? We were talking about properties yesterday, and someone mentioned the word or the phrase over leveraged. Was it Pip? Over leveraged?
Yeah, it was over leveraged, and you need to apologize to Chuck, because you were pretty hard on. Are you kidding me? Yeah, people are just asking, and so yeah, I'm going to call you out on the carpet in a live format. And if Chuck watches this, he'll hear me say that.
Is he there? Is he there? I wanted to apologize. I felt like I was a little bit rough on the guy.
Well, and you get to the late in the evening, and we all get a little bit punchy and stuff, and anytime you tell Sam that things are over leveraged or there's too much debt, that guy goes off on a tangent, even if he's not tired, even if it isn't, on his 48th cup of coffee for the day, because that's definitely one of those things that gets Sam all riled up.
You know what it is? It's hearing things that I used to say. I think it drives me nuts because it reminds me of myself, saying things and not necessarily understanding them. So the question was, you don't want to be over leveraged. You don't want to have 100% say on an investment property. And I asked why, and this is it. If we don't ask why, because they seem to make sense. It sounds like it makes sense, right? Why would I want 100% financing on a property? That's absolutely what you do want. You want 100% financing on all your properties if possible. Now, these properties still must produce a yield. They must produce a return. They must produce cash flow. We're not talking about 100% financing. And this is where I'd say somebody's over leveraged. You're over leveraged if you're not producing income. That makes sense to me. Absolutely, you're over leveraged if you're not producing income. But if I can, should I have 100% financing on a property that produces a yield? For sure you should, 100%. Why would you pay back the best loan you'll ever get in your life? A mortgage is probably the cheapest money you'll ever get lent to you. Lowest cost money you'll ever get lent to you in your life is your property. Why would you want to pay that off? Why? What would be the advantage of paying off a 1%, 2%, 3% loan? What would be the advantage? And I think that people have that misconception that if they have a mortgage, the bank owns their property. And Pip talks about this in his class, right? In our trainings. If there's a mortgage on your house, who owns your house? And everyone thinks it's the bank. And I was part of that school of thought. I thought the same thing. That bank owns my house. No, they don't own your house. Turns out, not only do they not own your house, they don't want your house. They don't want your house. That's not their model. They don't make money by owning property. If there was money in property, these guys would be involved deeper than they are. Now, obviously, the Depression created some laws and restrictions for the banks, but ultimately, a bank is not interested in anything other than buying and selling debt. That's it. So if banks are making money by buying and selling debt, why can't we? Why can't we? So the advantage of a property is to get low-cost money and converting it into a yield. So property, should I have 100% financing on a property? Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely, I should. And the reason simply is this: debt creates a shield, right? Debt creates a shield. Okay. You can't, this is what's interesting to me. You can't say that lending money is risky and borrowing money is risky. You can't say both. It's risky. I don't want to borrow money. Well, that's risky. I don't want to lend money. How does that make sense? How does that make sense? Both sides? Both sides? Come on. If banks, which are one of the most profitable centers in the world, are making money by buying and selling that, what's to say we can't do the same thing? Of course we can do the same thing. Of course we can do the same thing. And banks aren't lending dollar for dollar. They're lending 10 times. 10 times. You want to talk risk? 10 times. They only have to reserve 10% of what they lend. So if they lend $100,000, they only have to have $10,000 in reserve. That's in some countries. In some countries, it's more. It's like 5%. That's double. 10%. That's double the amount, the leverage. So do we want 100% mortgages on our houses? For sure. Why would I want to pay back? Why would I want to pay back the money? And this is the other thing. You never want to pay these things back. You never want to pay these loans. Why would you want to pay these loans back? Why? What's the advantage of you having equity in a house? What advantage? Now I've had people tell me, well, if I have equity in my house, I can get a line of credit. You're going to pay to borrow your own money? That's a good idea. So your own money, you're going to put money into your house so you can borrow it at interest. So you can borrow it at interest when you could have just kept the money and invested it. Now, if you can't find investment opportunities that produce a higher yield return than your house, you should pay your house off for sure. But this is a math question. This is just a math question. And the question becomes, how am I going to retire or have financial stability or independence if I can't produce a better return than inflation? How? If I can make a net 1% return, it'll take me 72 years to double my money. Double my money, it'll take me 72 years. We need to do better than that. And it starts with understanding where is the opportunity? Where's the opportunity in finance? And remember, this finance game, we invented it. We created it. We created it. But there are rules that supersede and transcend you and me. If we understand these rules and we apply these rules, we'll make money. Believe me, bank comes to you and says, if you're paying the mortgage, the bank will, why would they ever foreclose? Why would the bank ever foreclose on a property that loses money? Someone asked, what if the property goes down? So what? Let it go to zero. Who cares? So what if your property values go down? If it's producing cash flow, who cares? Who cares? You're not invested in these properties for capital gains. You're invested for income. If that's your goal, who cares if it goes down? So what? So what? In a bad economy, what happens to rent? There's actually pressure on rents to go up. Pressure on rents to go up because there are more people renting. People who would have bought houses are not buying houses, they're renting. So the rental market actually gets stimulated in a downward turn. And we get better quality renters. In an upward turn, you still have renters, and there's a slight increase due to inflation in rent. You still have the ability to rent places, but the people who would be renting from you in a downward economy are now buying property because the economy is better and times are better. So they're buying. So the quality of your renter goes down in a hot economy. It actually goes down in a hot economy. General renting I'm talking about, because there's other opportunities in renting, professional rentals, right? Short-term rentals, Airbnb. Those are great opportunities that you can use in a stimulated economy, a growth economy. Ultimately, we want zero equity in a property because the money that we would use to pay into that property, to pay down the debt, can be used to invest at a higher price, a higher return. That's all. If I could borrow money at 3 and lend it at 10, how often would I do it? How often would I do it? And that's what you're doing when you're buying a house. When you're getting a mortgage, you're getting secured, and the property itself is securing the loan, right? That's why they can foreclose and take the property. They're going to offer you a 3%, 3%, 4%, 2% interest rate. Just ask yourself, can I do better than that? Why would I ever pay the mortgage? Why would I ever pay that mortgage off? So if the bank came to you or me and said, hey, your house is upside down. You have more debt than the house is worth. Let me tell you, what I do. I go, here's the keys. Here's the keys. Here's the keys. I have zero equity in this house. Here's the keys. Is the bank going to take that asset? Do you really think the bank wants to take that asset? In fact, in the last crash, what happened? Fortunately, unfortunately, the people who got up every day and tried to pay down their mortgage, who lost their jobs, who couldn't keep up with their mortgage payments, you know what the bank did? The ones with the highest equity lost their houses. And when they went down that list of highest equity, lowest, when they got to the bottom, near the bottom, when there was no equity, you know what they did? They sat those people down and said, how can we keep you in the house? What can we do to rearrange this mortgage? The guy who had nothing in got the rearranging of the mortgage. They didn't want the keys. There was no benefit to the bank to take those properties. Debt creates a shield when you use it right. Now understand, these are powerful tools. You have to understand how to use them. They can hurt you if you don't know what you're doing. But in the truest sense of good debt versus bad debt, Debt is just debt and money's just money. And debt is just money that costs you a little more than what it says on the paper. It's the same thing. Debt and money are exactly the same thing. Just one costs you a little more to use. That's all. That's all. There's no difference. What's good and bad is where you put that money. If you put that money in something that doesn't produce income, debt, that doesn't produce a yield or income or capital gains, something, that's considered bad debt. Things that you get debt, deliberate debt, this is debt on purpose, that make you money, that increase your wealth, this is good debt. But it's not really the debt, it's where you put that debt. But money's the same thing, good money and bad money. Not all money is good. Oh, if I'm investing, I used to think you need money to make money. This is how we get kept down, is thinking these thoughts, thinking that we can't. The wealthiest 1% of the world control the most debt. The wealthiest one. Why? Why do billionaires get mortgages? Why do people who have all the money that they would ever need in 50 lifetimes still incur debt? Why when Google and Facebook get new ventures, they don't pay cash? They just pay cash. Why? You need to understand debt and its power if you want to accelerate the growth of wealth in your life, in your individual economy. This is absolute necessity for us if we want to grow wealth. Now, if you don't like that and you don't want that, don't get that. Just don't get it. You want it, you like your house and you feel like paying it off is the best thing to do, absolutely do that. Do that. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with paying off your house. There's something wrong with waking up in the morning and go, I love my asset. That's a problem. It's not an asset. It's not, I used to do that. We go, I love my asset. I love my asset. I used to say that, right? No, not anymore. You know what I do now? I wake up in the morning and go, I love my liability. If we can't distinguish the difference between an asset and liability, how are we going to build wealth? It's simple. Things that make you money are assets. Things that don't are liabilities. It doesn't mean you shouldn't consume. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have nice stuff. It doesn't mean you shouldn't buy stuff. That's not what it means. It means when you buy the $5,000 watch, call it for what it is. It's a liability. When you buy that house and you try to pay it off, or even your own house and it's got a mortgage, it's still a liability. It's still, you buy that car that you really love, good on you. It's still a liability. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when you call a liability an asset. That's a problem. Because what are you going to do if you think something like that's an asset? What are you going to do? I'm going to buy more of them. I'm going to do more of that. No, you need to create more wealth than you destroy. And when you consume, you destroy wealth, and that's okay. But you got to create more than you destroy. When economies cannot create more wealth than they destroy, this is when we get recessions, accelerated by the mentality that there isn't enough, scarcity and hoarding and saving, which is really hoarding. We need to get educated. We'll never get out of the hole that we've dug in inches and realize that we're 15 feet down in inches, 15 feet down. How am I going to get up from this hole? How am I going to get up? So recognize the power of debt, recognize the power of money. One of the comments that I made yesterday was the good thing about money is to buy debt. That's really what money is good for. How much debt can I buy with it? How much debt can I buy with this money? What does that mean? It means go out and invest in things like property with high leverage. If $10,000 buys you a $100,000 house, that's awesome. So I bought $90,000 worth of debt with $10,000. That's what I want to do. I want to buy as much debt as I can with my money, and I want it to produce income. Income. Not saying that capital gains doesn't have an advantage or an opportunity or something that we want part of our portfolio. But if you want to defend against economic change, you need to have cash flow, diverse cash flow, diverse, different categories, different, asset classes, income. When your money's out of the market, you want it in. When it's in the market, get it out. Right? That money has to move. Velocity is what's going to get you there. Okay. So going back to the question, should I have 100% financing on everything? Absolutely. They want it, let them take it. Believe me, they don't want it. They don't want it. No advantage of paying off a house. By the way, when you pay off a house, it's not like you don't pay taxes anymore. It's not like you got no mortgage. Congratulations. Still got to pay taxes, maintenance, insurance. I mean, you don't need insurance. Something goes wrong, you're gonna wish you had it. So the insurance doesn't go the way, the maintenance doesn't go away, and inflation is deteriorating the value of your house. But again, if you want to pay off your house, knock yourself out. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just wrong when we call it an asset. Pip, you want to add any comments to that?
Well, I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to add comments. We've been going for 20 minutes, and I said hello, and that's all that I said. So it's all good. Yeah, it's all good. Well, I mean, I can't add a lot because there's a lot of, I agree with it all. One of the things that I make a couple of jokes about these things. I mean, and some of the people that are making comments on here are closer to my age. I know they are. I remember people talking about having mortgage burning parties where they would actually take the mortgage note that they've paid it off, and then they'd invite all their friends over, have a big party, and they would set it on fire like this was a big deal. And there's a story that goes, the fire department was called to this house, and what happened to the house? It burnt down. Why did it burn down? Because they were burning the mortgage. And so, I mean, it's kind of a stupid story, but nonetheless. And so you start looking at these things, and to me, it's a simple concept, and you don't even have to be very smart. And that's why I think I got it, is because I'm not that smart. But you drive into any major city, and who has the biggest, tallest, nicest buildings in any city? It's always the banks or insurance companies, which roughly do the exact same thing.
Great business model, office. We're going to talk about insurance. Go ahead, Ben.
Great business model.
Oh,
and it's one of the best ones out there. But they generally, in any city you go to now, there are some variations. If you go to Calgary, if you go to Houston, if you go to Perth, Australia, the oil companies in those places will have some of the tallest buildings in the city. They're minuscule compared to all the buildings that are out there. And so why is it that when I go to Toronto, it's RBC has a big building there, and BMO has a big building. I mean, everybody has these big, same way New York City, it doesn't matter. They all have these really big buildings. And then you really look at it, and you when you realize, and you turn on the light and you say, they don't own the house. Because if they own the house, you could call them up when you needed to have maintenance done and say, hey, can you send somebody over to fix it? They're not going to do that because they don't own it. They require you to do that. So you have all the maintenance, you have all the taxes, you have all those issues. But what you don't realize is you also have all the benefits. Because if you use leverage and the house does go up in value a little bit, if it does go up in value a little bit, so let's say we got $100,000 property. Mark, I'm looking at names coming up here. Mark, are you over in Australia? If I remember, if you are, I want you to say hello, because it's cool to see people all over the world on these things. I see all people all across the United States, and I know Europe doesn't ever get onto these because it's like 2 a.m. where they're at right now. But anyway, so I met you in Perth, Australia. I think if I'm wrong on that, let me know. But when it really comes down to it, with the banks and all that whole mentality, is if you have $100,000 house and you only put, I remember meeting Mark in Perth. Very cool. I love to play memory games. I know Sam's going, how the heck did you know that? Like, am I typing something in? I got my hands in my pockets here. I just remember Mark from Perth, Australia. Anyway, I remember a lot of weird things, and I don't know why I remember it. But anyway, the point being is if you have a $100,000 house and you have $10,000 invested in it, so you have a $90,000 mortgage, and that property goes up over the course of, and let's just say a couple of years, it goes up 10%. Okay, it goes up 10% in 2 or 3 or 4 years, whatever it is. You're making the appreciation on the whole $100,000 asset, but you've only put 10,000 into it. So your 10,000 is now doubled to 20,000 by the use of leverage. And this is what Sam talks about, is buying debt. Because you go and buy Bitcoin, and I know Bitcoin's off the charts with what it's doing. You go buy some of these other stocks, you go buy Apple and stuff, it will go up, but you're not going to be able to leverage at that same level that you can with real estate, because the banks will loan you money on the real estate, much more so than they will. Now, obviously, there's margin accounts and things like that that you can do on stocks, but it's not the same situation as when you're doing debt on real estate. And so I think that's why I'm such a fan of property, is because it allows you to do that leverage piece. And I don't see that in any other asset class. You can't buy gold with leverage. It's just not going to happen.
Tougher, that's for sure. And you're not going to get the security, the low cost amount. Everybody needs somewhere to live. Not everybody needs gold or iPhones or cars but they need somewhere to live. I mean, it's absolutely a necessity. So it's got an advantage over the other asset classes. The other thing I want to talk about was inflation and deflation. So very much and a very important concept to understand and spend some time better understanding is money supply. Money supply really is probably the most important thing when you're looking at economies and things that impact inflation and deflation, house prices, stock market prices. So money supply or the money supply is all the money that's in circulation and moving around in the economy. Okay, so when the government wants to create, say the economy is flat, not doing very well. So what the banks or the governments do is they lower their interest rates. The world banks, Bank of Canada, the UK, United Kingdom, United States, Australia, Bank of Australia. These institutions lower their interest rates, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to stimulate and motivate the banks to lower their rates so they can lend more money. And what they do when they lend money is every time a bank lends money, they create new money that didn't exist in the economy, right? Because they only have to put up 10%. And that's different in different countries, different rules, but just as a general rule, use 10%. So if a bank only has to put up 10,000 to lend 100,000, that 90,000 didn't exist in the economy. It didn't exist. That 90,000 now is part of the money supply. So when governments want to stimulate the economy, they promote lending. This is the way they do it. Now, this is probably, I mean, it's a tool that's been used forever. It's a great tool. Sometimes they feel like they got to do more, to try to create some inflation. Might increase the minimum wage. That'll create inflation because it'll increase the money supply and the consumption. Unfortunately, prices go up relative to that, and that's kind of what they want. They want prices to go up, but they want prices to go up. The best way for prices to go up is through new products and services, GDP. They want the growth to create that new money and that money supply. Sometimes it needs help. And this is why they infuse capital into the economy. So lending, lowering interest rates to increase the lending creates new money. Foreign investment can create new money. Best one to create new money is new jobs. That's the ultimate one. Long-lasting recurring revenue for the government. So awesome when they can create new jobs or promote growth that way. Really, really good. So inflation is there's more money in the system bidding on the same goods and services, right? So if there's one person who wants the coffee, and he has $1, great to spend. He spends $1 and he buys the coffee, great. But if there's two people that each have $1 because a new job was created, and they want to buy this coffee, then this coffee can increase in price, right? So it increases, say, to 110. So now these two individuals have to decide, if they can afford or wish to spend the 110 now on this, right? So this is supply. This is supply. This is demand, right? So we want the demand to increase. We want the income, the money supply to increase. These prices will go up. And it'll show us some growth. So a little bit of inflation is good. Hyperinflation is horrible. That means the prices took off, and that's a different kind of sickness of an economy, which happened. It's happened several times. It happens all the time. In cycles. 1982 was a rough patch for North America. Around the world too, there was some problems, but more specifically in North America, there was. A mortgage was almost 22% to get a mortgage on a house. If you were double digits. Imagine that, right? You're getting mortgages now at 2%, 3%, 1%, depending where you are, 1.5%. You couldn't imagine paying 13, 14, 17% interest, but that's the rates that were around then. So, it's important to understand that just because you hear the word inflation, that doesn't mean a bad thing. Hyperinflation is horrible, but inflation is a good thing. It means the economy is growing. So governments purposely try to create an environment where there is a level of inflation, 2 to 3%. That's a good thing to see. Deflation is the reverse, right? So deflation is the money supply is shrinking. So what happens when the money supply shrinks? What happens is short term, it's not a big deal. It's okay. But if you have a long term effect of deflation caused by consumption is going down, so nobody wants the coffee. Nobody wants it. Nobody thinks they have enough. Everybody's hoarding, saving cash. What happens is the production of this coffee is the same, but the cost has to come down. So the profit margin starts to get lower and lower for the business. And what happens is the business has to run leaner, less jobs. It feeds on itself, very much like recessions do and inflation does. It feeds on itself. So what happens is less people are spending money, and if they're not spending or consuming because of that feeling that there isn't enough or it's not worth it, this can create long-term problems like in Japan. So deflation is when people stop spending money, right? The problem with deflation, or the problem with the future in regards to deflation, is as you get older in life, you tend to spend less money. And what happens is the population ages in an economy like the United States and Canada, and other parts of the world too, for sure, in Japan, great example. There's more saving and hoarding of capital. So governments tend to play, in my view, silly games on trying to stimulate the economy by injecting massive amounts of cash, giving money away, zero interest rates, negative interest rates, punishing you for saving money, which is horrible for someone in retirement when they're trying to save and invest in low risk, low yield. It's horrible. It's terrible for people that are in bonds. So right now people are going to suffer in retirement because the interest rates, bonds are just, they're savage. They're terrible. In some parts of the world, there's negative interest rates. So imagine doing that, giving somebody money. They give it back. This is an investment. They give it back. Give you less. It's just crazy, but governments do that because they're trying to stop people from saving. They want them to spend the money. This stuff to me is hilarious. The key to a healthy economy is jobs. So I love it when governments get involved in promoting jobs, promoting business, jobs. That's what's going to help people, and the economies grow. Injecting money into the economy just to cover, like in the last year, the GDP that's lost. It's not going to give you the desired effect. I'm not saying that there wasn't relief needed. There was relief needed, but what the long-term effects can be damaging if they're not managed. Me and Pip were earlier talking about, this approach to managing COVID, which governments are doing the best they can. I get it. Is going to create an entitlement attitude, I think, from a lot of people. Entitlement, and I think it will create some challenges for businesses to employ people. I know in my industry, it's been a little bit of a problem to find people who want to work when your wage is higher. It is higher, but they got to work. So when you're getting this much for nothing, somebody says, "Hey, let me give you this much more. I just need you to work 8 hours a day." People are like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'll just stay home and watch Netflix." It's a tough sell. So unfortunately, you're creating a zero or low unemployment rate, fictional one, right? Because people who are making money maybe not be employed, but it affects the employment rate. So the unemployment rate's really high, right? But really, if they're making money, it's affecting employment in a negative way because people don't need money. Because people typically work because there's a relationship with working, making money, and needing money. And then, there's some basic needs that we want. I'd rather you focused on wanting money than needing money. I don't like the idea of being shackled to it or it being overwhelming or just creating a heavy weight to carry around your throat every day, thinking, I don't have enough. I don't have enough. This is not a good place to be. And admittedly, I've been there. I've been there. It's terrible. It's terrible. And the amount of money and energy we spend thinking about money, that we don't have enough. So when you see how the government's managing this, it becomes a scary proposition for the future. What does that mean for real estate investing and stock market investing? Does it mean they're not good anymore? No, just means you got to use the proper strategy in the proper environment. That's all. That's all that means. There's always opportunity. We want movement. We want the ups and downs. We want it because it creates opportunity. This is what we want. So more wealth is created and transferred. Transferred, not so much created in a recession. Lots of wealth destroyed in a recession. And this idea that wealth never gets destroyed, not true. Wealth gets destroyed all the time. But more wealth, you hope, in a healthy economy, is created than destroyed. And there's nothing wrong with destroying wealth. By the way, buying a car and using that car is destroying wealth. There's nothing wrong. It's over a longer period of time, but it's destroying wealth. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to destroy wealth. It's okay for industries to be destroyed if new jobs are created in lieu of the destruction of that particular type of wealth. So there's lots of opportunity up there, in the world. There's lots of, don't feel down or sad because the economy is going to go through a rough patch, which it will. And I hope it's not affecting you, or maybe it'll wake you up to looking at different opportunities and different streams of income. But the one thing that will help you, I think, and this is something that Pip a long time ago, really pushed on me, was mindset. And I do believe that philosophy, your mindset, dictates your attitude, and attitude dictates your behavior, and behavior dictates your results. So if you really want to make a change fundamentally, I think it's you can do it. You can force yourself to change your behaviors. Very tough, but mindset is really where the shift needs to happen, I think, to accelerate the speed at which where you are and where you want to go. So I hope I gave you some insight on inflation and deflation. It's tough when we're not having a conversation, or you're not telling, we don't have the feedback to know exactly the areas you'd like to know more about. But please, in the chat box, let us know if you have a question or something that you want us to continue to expand on, or an idea that we have. Please, this is important to us. Yeah, Pep.
Well, first of all, my chat on my computer for some reason went dark. I don't know what it is, so I'm trying to do it on my phone as we go here. Couple of comments. They want to know what's in your coffee because you laugh more at your own jokes or your own comments than anybody else is laughing. And what's really cool is I'm seeing some people that I haven't seen forever. I know he talked about somebody from Australia on here. Mark, and Mark from Australia wants you to run for president. Unfortunately, he's a Canadian. He can't become the president. And then Nancy and Ron Tenbrink are on here and talk about,
hey guys,
seeing some really cool, and every time I get on one of these, it seems like I see somebody I haven't seen for a while. So even if, only if, a few people watch it, it's really cool to see some of the old faces that I haven't seen in a while. It's always great to see the same ones over and over again, and we want you guys to keep coming on here. But yeah, it's great to see some new people on here, and it's great to hear Sam laugh at himself. There's no doubt about that.
So some of this stuff is hilarious. It's some of these approaches are, I don't know, you can laugh or you can cry. I mean, this stuff is crazy. It's the economy has complexity, but ultimately people need to earn income. People need jobs. Jobs should be the primary focus of every government. And that doesn't mean fabricating jobs or fabricating income. It means creating an environment where jobs can be created. Just allow people the opportunity to do that. I do believe people want to work and want wealth and want stuff and want to consume and all that good stuff in a healthy economy. But some of these methods are, I don't get it. I don't understand. Yeah.
I want to address something you said, and I know I'm trying to do the chat and try and talk as well. Mostly just listen to Sam laugh at himself, but that's a That's like a whole evening in itself. The raising the minimum wage. I mean, I don't. We used to own a business that had a lot of minimum wage employees, a grocery business. At one point, we had over 250 employees, of which I'm going to say, and one of my brothers could probably correct me, I'm going to say a majority. So let's say 60% of that 250 employees were minimum wage earners. And then there's nothing wrong with that. That's a starter job for a lot of people, and that's great. But and we'll use the $15 an hour thing that is on there right now. And we got to think who it hurts. It's I hate to say it, it's probably not going to hurt the business owners. Probably not going to hurt the wealthy people. You know who it's going to hurt is the people in the middle. I mean, and it's easy math, because if you got three people, one of them's making $9 an hour. Let's say that's minimum wage in the state that you're in. One of them's making 12 bucks an hour, and one of them's making 15 bucks an hour. And all of a sudden, Big Brother, the government, comes in and says, okay, Mr. Employer, you don't have a choice. $15 an hour is the minimum wage. Well, guess what? The $9 an hour guy goes to $15 an hour. The $12 an hour guy goes to $15 an hour. And the $15 an hour guy is sitting there going, what did I do wrong? Because you just can't inversely raise everybody's wage. You can't do it. Because every week, every month, every year, you're looking at a budget when you own a business. Unless your volume keeps going up. Now, they will, whatever I want to say, artificially increase the volume because they're going to increase prices. They don't have a choice. And so, but the person that gets cut out is that middle person that's doing more than minimum wage work, that's getting paid more than minimum wage, that when you raise that bottom level up, it's hard to raise that middle level up because the owner, the wealthy, they don't have the capability in that business to do it, because then their cash flow goes to nothing and there won't be any business any longer.
That's right. And you know what? Let's ask ourselves, why the job's minimum wage? Like, why is the job minimum wage? This is not a slight on people who are earning minimum wage at all. But the reality is something's minimum wage because the skill level necessary to perform the tasks, a large pool of people can do it. That's all it is. And then people say, well, we need to educate people more. Really? Do we really need to educate you? Are you kidding me? Canada is one of the most educated economies in the world. You got people with master's degrees working as a barista. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying there's something wrong with investing the years and money. And that's the job that you're left with. There's something wrong with this. There's something wrong. So it's not just education, this idea that let's educate everybody. That's not a good idea. There's things that are going to produce something and things that are not. So educating everybody, it's what you educate them with that's going to matter. And this idea of free education, hilarious. Hilarious. Free education? Oh my gosh. Well, if I'm paying for everyone's education, guess what? There's certain degrees I don't think, like basket weaving is not going to be a degree anymore. You know what I'm saying? We're going to decide, what's okay and what's not okay. That's not what I want. I want there to be basket weaving for the guy who wants to do basket weaving. If he's got the dough to spend to do basket weaving, knock yourself out. You want to study philosophy? Knock yourself out. I'm not going to tell you, hey, it's very tough to, philosophy, bachelor's, I don't know what you can do with it. I really don't, but it seems like a tough, tough degree to put to work, maybe coupled with something else. That'd be great. But if I'm talking about me paying for the education, everybody's education, think of the restrictions on the type of education that can be pursued. You don't want this thing to be free. You don't want it to be free. Free is not free. Free is, I got to pay it later. That's all. That's all. We don't need free stuff. We need jobs. We need to get jobs that produce income so people can spend money. Spending money is not bad. Going to work is not bad. But doing nothing and getting money, this is not healthy. This creates the poverty mindset. And this is a disease of the mind that gets transferred to your children's children. This is terrible. This is terrible. Jobs. This is it. Create jobs. Create opportunity. Let us do the rest. We don't need you to get involved. We don't need you to start making rules about this and that, and this should be like this. Enough. Enough. The economy doesn't need your participation. It needs your support for jobs. This is what needs to be done. So this idea, these ideas, they sound great. Let's just make it free. Really? Who's paying the professors? Who's paying the taxes on the property tax of that building? Well, they don't pay any property. That's fine. Let's not get any taxes from them either. These private enterprises stimulate the economy. They produce jobs. You know, public education, you know, at some level, absolutely. I understand, you know, public school, primary school, even high school. I can appreciate giving our people some basic understanding and knowledge so they can participate in the world and decide how they're going to be a contributor to the economy. And that contribution should be rewarded. If you work harder, you should get more money. You should not get more for doing less. This is not real. This is a fiction. You can't do that. That doesn't work. So if you do more and you create more, you should be rewarded more. This is simple concepts. They're very simple concepts. People want more, let them have more. Stop getting involved in ways that create predictability in the market. You create destruction, you create corruption. You know, what do you think these people do when they know the government's funneling zillions of dollars into a program? What do you think they do? They take advantage. You know what, the gold, when they did that with the Brentwood Act, what a disaster. Trying to fix the gold prices. That was hilarious. You know what happened? When the gold prices went down, people just bought it because they knew the governments had to get the price up because they were trying to fix the price of gold. Are you kidding me? They got crushed. That's why we don't have a gold standard. It doesn't work. You can't control that price. You can't control the price of gold. You don't want to control it. Do not create predictability. This is a fool's game. Life is unpredictable. Embrace it, love it, participate. But trying to make these rules, what a disaster. This stuff is. It's disappointing because these are the people that are making the decisions that are affecting not one, not two, but tens, even millions, tens of millions of people. They got to do better. They got to understand money. Come on, understand the economy. Don't even know what unemployment. I'm not even.
Well, and one of our problems, and I don't want to knock the education system because obviously it's what we have, but the people that are teaching people about money generally don't know much about money.
True.
You wouldn't go to, somebody, it'd be like going to work at a flower shop to learn how to work on a car. Nothing wrong with flower shop or mechanic, not at all, but those skill sets don't intertwine. And the people that are teaching people about money a lot of times don't know anything about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I should say there's everything in the world that's wrong with that. We need to get it fixed from an education standpoint. And I love the Kiyosaki mentality is if they're not going to teach it in the schools, then we've got to figure out a better way to do it somewhere else.
Blind leading the blind.
And I think one of the biggest things we're going to see from COVID, obviously a lot of these are predictions. I think what we're going to see is the university system is going to get one of the biggest hits of anything out there because everybody wants a Harvard education, but if I can do it all online, why am I paying Harvard education prices? And I think that we're going to see a bit of an ebb and flow in this, where I think we're going to see a large decrease in major university on-campus people because of the fear that we've seen with the COVID stuff. Right or wrong, it's going to happen. But I don't think a lot of the problem with that is going to be seen for 20 years. Because what happens is when you go to university, what's one of the things that you do? You end up networking with people and becoming friends with people that down the road later on become a big influence in maybe you getting a better job, maybe you getting an appointment to a judgeship or whatever it is that you need to do. Whereas if you're doing that online, you're going to miss all that. And that networking opportunity to rub elbows. I mean, whether you like it or not, people go into frats and sororities and they become brothers and sisters in those kinds of things. And they help each other out down the road. Oh, you were an Alpha Delta Pi. Oh, now I'm an Alpha Delta Pi. I mean, and so those are sororities, by the way. My daughter's in it, so that's why I can recite that one real quick. But it becomes kind of that organization of helping each other out. And if we're doing everything virtually, you're not going to get that same result of the networking option. But anyway, that's my thought on it. And I'm going to end the night. Sam, you probably have another thought, don't you?
I just want to say I think that this is good for the universities. I really do. I think what it forced them to do and will force them to do is become more competitive. Really, I think that competition is absolutely the healthiest thing you can do for an economy, for the consumer. And to see these universities have to create a new environment, put more money, put more effort, put more construction and reconstruction into their online mode of learning, I think is going to be wonderful. And it's going to allow a lot of players to come in and participate in it. Pip's absolutely right. We're not going to see the impact of these things, I think, for decades. Absolutely right. The social interaction that's lost needs to be recovered somehow in this environment to fulfill the things that Pip was talking about. These connections are important that you make, especially in those years. So something will be lost and something will be gained. But definitely, I think it's good to see the universities have to fight, because they haven't been fighting for a long time. They really haven't. It's time. Yeah, it's time to raise your game. You got to compete against yourself, and these guys haven't competed against anybody forever. This is a great thing. It's an awesome thing for them, and it ensures their life is long as we're shifting to an online environment. This is why what we talked about at the beginning about Australia, this is no good. You don't need to protect these industries. You need to help them create the environment to compete. Get better. Do you guys remember BlackBerry? You know, there's going to be a time, Pip, when we say BlackBerry, people are like, "What's that?" Remember BlackBerry? They were the kings. BlackBerry were the kings. That guy who brought BlackBerry, that created the guy was like a genius. The guy was doing stuff when he was inventing stuff. The guy was a genius. Created BlackBerry, asked the tough question. And then when Apple came along, did nothing. It's a fad. People are not going to want to do all that stuff on their phone. Dead. Not dead completely, but hey, man, missed the boat. They were on the cutting edge. BlackBerry. What do they call it? Crackberry? Used to call it Crackberry. Remember that? Used to call it Crackberry. Remember? Click, 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 click. This is how you use the text, and they were amazing with their thumb. This is how they do it. And security email was amazing. BlackBerry was amazing, but they watched someone come along, and they refused to compete with what was right in front of them, and terrible.
Well,
Wasted talent.
we could talk for hours, and we've got obviously more
Yeah.
sessions we're going to do. So just a couple of things. First thing I want to do is I want to apologize if I didn't respond to some of your chats. I don't, for whatever reason, they went blank on my computer, and I don't want to refresh anything because I didn't want to turn the whole thing off. And so I didn't want to do that. And I was having some problems getting them on my phone. So next week on Wednesday, I'll be back at home, and I'll be able to get the technology a little bit better. Keep throwing the chats in there. Let us know any topics that you want to talk about. If there's something different that you want to hear, put it in you can send me a private message, whatever you need to do. Somebody asked, I believe Michelle, and I'm trying to remember if Clint wants to or if you want Clint to rewatch these, make sure you go to the YouTube channel, just my Pip Stellick YouTube channel, go on there. And then you can watch all the different sessions. We got all kinds of stuff on there. So yeah, just make sure you're going there to watch these. Jen, my wife leaves them up on Facebook for a while, but then eventually she sends them over there. So obviously we're in this business to inform, but we're also in business to do business. And part of it is the marketing side of this. And if this is the way you've got to get out to people, we'll do whatever we need to do to get our message out to people, because we know there are people that have asked for it. We know there are people that are listening to it. Sam, not me, but Sam wants to get people on here that want to argue with him. That's not me. I learned a long time ago, I'd rather be happy than right. And I got 2 daughters that are teenagers, and I'm seldom right at my house. So it's all good. I don't need anybody else to tell me I'm wrong. It's all good. But anyway, so you have something else you want to say, Sam?
I was going to say the person that I argue with the most is myself, and I think it's healthy to ask the questions why. Not to just accept things that sound right. Get some sources, do some research. And I promise, we promise to continue to develop our ideas, these ideas of inflation and deflation and leverage. We'll continue to talk about them. They go deep, and we'll spend more time on them in the coming weeks for sure. We're going to talk about those things. I think they're important for us to understand. And money flow, and history. I really want to get into the history of some of these things. Pep, please remind me. Let's do some history. History on history of money is amazing. So very, very exciting to better understand its source.
I'm going to say this since people have been asking me questions, and we actually people sign up for some of our training that we've done last week tonight. They're only a week late. Big deal, no big deal. That's not a bad thing. So if you're listening to this, whether you're listening to it live or you're listening to it on a recording, we got all kinds of different trainings going on. We've got a bunch of recorded on-demand type classes, lease option, creative finance, wholesale. What am I missing, Sam?
Foundations.
Foundations and cash flow.
Buy and hold, multi-unit kind of stuff. Yeah.
We've got all those already recorded. We're selling those. And when you buy those, they're all like 18 hours of material, all the contracts that go with them, all the handouts, all the scripts. So the price is insanely low. We probably give it away too much. But on top of that, we're doing Tuesday night coaching sessions with all of those. So if you have any questions about that, just send me a private message. It's not hard to do. You guys are already friends with me on Facebook. Send me a private message, and it's totally worth the $300-400 to get into that, because we're going to be doing coaching sessions all the way till June. Even if you don't watch the on-demand sessions, just to get into those Tuesday night coaching sessions, it's going to be huge. I know some of the people that were on our last night ones, they're like, wow, we should have done this earlier. Why weren't you doing this before? Well, obviously, we don't know what the demand is until we get it out there into the marketplace and see what's going on. So if you have any questions about any of that stuff, send me a private message. We can do a phone call, whatever, and talk about the processes that we have. We're going to be doing more stuff. Sam's going to be doing a wholesale class online coming up here in a couple of weeks. We'll keep you up to date on that as well. And I know everybody's like, well, all you do is market. Well, I don't know any other way to let people know what we're doing unless we market it. I mean, I can, sit in the hotel and not talk to anybody, but then people are like, why didn't you tell me about this? Well, then I do. And then certain people get mad. The one thing I learned a long time ago, there's one sure way to fail. The only sure way I know to fail is try to make everybody happy. As soon as you do that, you will fail. So I can't make everybody happy, Sam. I know he doesn't make everybody happy. Sometimes he makes me unhappy, but that's a whole different story. So please get on to the Wealth Debate. Share this with other people if you're on Facebook. Also watch it on the YouTube channel. If you have any questions about coaching, about on-demand courses, please go to just send me a private message on my messenger, and I'll talk to you about that and explain what we've got. And if you do something, great. If you don't, like I said, just the coaching sessions alone. What I've noticed about coaching sessions is if you have one question, that's fine. But if you start hearing other people's questions, you're like, oh, I have that problem too. Oh, I never even thought that as a problem. But that's been a problem for me as well. So it's able to get the camaraderie of the group. And we're going to be doing those, like I said, every Tuesday night to June. We may extend it longer, but you need to send me a message on Facebook and I'll show you how to get signed up for that. So with that being said, Sam, you have a good evening, my friend. All the way. You're going to be the first Canadian citizen to become a president of the United States, because we got multiple votes for you to become president. That's kind of cool. As I say every time, turn to somebody you know, somebody you don't know, and tell them you're going to be all right. You guys have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon.